Welcome to the Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. My name is Dr. Adriana Popescu. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and leader in the field of mental health, energy psychology, addiction, trauma, and empowerment. In this podcast, we will be exploring mental health from a variety of perspectives, from the spiritual to the shamanic and beyond. What if mental illness isn't everything we think it is? What if everything we see as a pathology is actually a possibility? What else is possible with mental health?
All right. Hi, everyone. Dr. Adriana Popescu here with you today with another episode of Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. I'm really excited to have with me as my guest today someone I've known for many years. Her name is Simone Milasas. She's an innovative business leader, best-selling author, and global speaker. She's the founder of Joy of Business. She mentors entrepreneurs around the world to create greater wealth, success, and happiness. After turning her own life around with $187,000 in debt to a thriving global portfolio, Simone knows that true achievement starts with taking care of yourself. She believes relaxation and nurturing your body are essential to performing at your peak. Simone is also a business development manager and advanced facilitator with Access Consciousness, now in over 180 countries, and the author of Joy of Business, Getting Out of Debt Joyfully, and Relationship. Are you sure you want one? Welcome, Simone.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here.
Yes, it's good to see you. I always love to start the show off by introducing our guests and finding out more about them. So could you tell us a little bit more about yourself and how it is that you came to be doing all these amazing things you're doing today?
Well, there's a lot you could talk about, but as soon as you ask that question, what I go to is, if I recall, when I was about 16 years of age, gosh, so much is happening in high school, and what you're supposed to be doing and what other people are choosing, and drama and all this sort of thing. I remember looking around thinking, there has to be something else. There has to be something else, because I grew up in Sydney, Australia, and I grew up right on the edge of Sydney. And Sydney is about as big as LA. And it's literally, I think they say it's the most unplanned city in the world because of how, Captain Cook landed and it just sprawled. So I grew up right on the edge of it. So right on a place called Port Hacking River, backed onto the national park. So I had a lot of nature around me. And then I went to school right in the city. So I had this city, I had people from all over Sydney, lots of different things going on. But nature was always this moment, right? And I remember looking around thinking, this can't be it. Like, why are people talking about this stuff that I don't think is relevant or doesn't matter? But I definitely went and played in that game of like, he said, she said, I like him, he doesn't like me, school, money, like, and played in that reality of all of that. And I remember at one year at school, I decided to take a year off from everyone I was hanging around with, and I just hung out on my own. And everyone was like, what's wrong? What's wrong with Simone? What's wrong? And I was like, my God, there seemed to be like this lack of choice or enthusiasm to find out and explore what else is possible beyond this culture. And I also remember weirdly not being able to talk to anyone about it. I think I just knew, like, if I start talking, people are going to be, don't be ridiculous. You've got to get a good job, get a like this whole thing. And I was like, none of it made sense. So I just decided, everyone was like, what are you going to study when you go to university? What are you going to be when you grow up? And I went, I want to see the world. I want to see the world, and I want to have my own business. And people used to say to me, well, what sort of business? And I was like, I don't know yet. I just know, in my world, I went, business is a way that you can get something out there and you can change something. It can be malleable. You can create a difference. I don't know, all of that more felt very creative to me. And I also wanted to see, how are other people living? Because I grew up in a place called Sutherland Shire in Sydney, which was, I mean, nothing wrong with it at all, but it's just like, talk about like just white land. Like, that's what it was. And I went to a private school in Sydney. Again, nothing wrong with it. It was a very Christian school, everything. I'm not bagging my upbringing. What I noticed was, is this it? and that's what started questioning me. So when I was 19, I left to go overseas, and I told everyone I was going for 6 months, and I ended up, traveling for 3 years around the world. And, I would see a lot of things, and I would see a lot of, things that you hear about, whether it's museums or history, art, etc. But what was always intriguing to me was, how are these people choosing to live? Like, what's making them tick? What's going on? And I gained so much awareness from just talking to people and asking them questions and finding out. And I think that was like one of the biggest growth periods for me. I surrounded myself by a lot of people, because traveling, you got a lot of backpackers, and I lived in a house with 3 bedrooms and 21 people at one stage and one bathroom, that sort of thing. But I also spent a lot of time on my own. I had no money. So, I remember in London, I would just ride those big red buses around, and I would write a lot, and I wrote a lot of poetry, or I just wrote. I just wrote everything down that was sort of coming up for me, because I didn't have that sense that I had anyone that I could really talk to that would listen. That's probably a good way to say it. And then I saw a famous musician in London, in Camden Markets, and she had this T-shirt on, and it was really quite derogatory. And I remember looking at her thinking, you have the power to wear a T-shirt that has something that is empowering, and this is the T-shirt you're choosing to wear. People are going to look at you, and they're going to follow that lead. And that was the moment that I went, what could I create? Like, what could I create? What could I choose? And I wrote this whole concept about being vulnerable. And if we were more vulnerable with each other, we had less walls, less barriers, etc. Like kids or animals when they're like, hi, like that energy. And I came up with this whole concept of creating, I guess, merchandise in a way, like with different sayings on it and all of that. And then, I did that, and I did many, many, many different things. Like, I worked in so many industries. There was a guy once in Australia who said to me, "You do realize how bad your resume looks, right?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" And he went, "You've had too many jobs, And he went, "But let me guess." He said, "You get a job, you do it well, and then you get bored and you leave." And I was like, "Yeah, pretty much." And I see a lot of people that do that, and then they get judged for it. And whereas you're just wanting to explore, that's not wrong. And so anyway, I created this merchandise business called Good Vibes for You. But that's when I also met Gary Douglas, the founder of Access Consciousness. And everything that he was talking about, I was like, the kid from Home Alone, I was like, oh my God, it's everything that I'm aware of, but nobody was talking about it. So, here I am. I mean, that's everything I just described then was over a long period of time, like a good 15 years. And then I met Gary and Dane, and this is like 25 years later that I've still been working with Access, and here I am. So that's the version that came out on your podcast.
Yeah, I love it. But you know what I noticed, that in the telling of your story, you reference questions, and this is something that I know is a big talking point in Access Consciousness. We talk about questions and how questions can empower, whereas an answer disempowers. Can you say a little bit more about that?
Yeah. And so I noticed this at school. That's the first time I noticed it. It was so drummed into you. What are you going to study? What are you going to do? What are you going to do when you leave school? Like, come up with the answer. And there were some people who I knew were like, I'm going to be this, I'm going to be that. And they felt, I would listen to them and think, God, they feel so like secure in what they're choosing, and I was like, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, like, what would I like to do? But you were never empowered to ask a question. It was always work it out, find the answer, get the conclusion. That's where you got ahead. I mean, I had a stepson for 8 years, and when the same thing was occurring to him when he was in high school. And I went, dude, just please know you can change your mind a million times. Like, just whatever you're choosing now doesn't have to be what you're doing in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years time. Okay. You're allowed to change your mind, but what would bring you joy today? Like, let's choose from that, And I wish someone had been that with me, and they hadn't. And it's interesting. Never studied science at school. I studied the least amount of science I could and the least amount of maths I could. I did all English and history topics because I liked writing essays and I liked looking at all this. And one of the philosophers that I really liked was Socrates. And Socrates was always talking about, question everything. I mean, he did it in a little bit of a different way, but he was like, question everything. And there was just something so appealing about that to me, where you didn't have to like figure it out, or you didn't have to conclude something. It was about being in question. And then, of course, coming along to Access Consciousness, and like you said, it's about question everything. And now I will say, my whole life, it was very much work it out, do this. So I was trying to get it right. As soon as I was born, my mother never really embraced me at all. She doesn't really like females. So I was, definitely not liked very much by my mother. I was by my father. Okay. So that was really different. But the fact that she projected at me the whole time I was wrong, even pretty much just for having a vagina, I tried to prove I was right. So I've spent my whole entire life trying to prove that my choices were right. And I see a lot of people out there trying to prove that their choices are right. And there is so much freedom if you give that up and you start actually being in question. And it could be daily, it should be daily, actually. It's like with your body, with your relationships, with business, finance, everything. It's like even the question of like, does this still, work for me today? It's like, yesterday I don't call it busy, I call it popular, okay? You didn't have a busy day, I had a popular day. And I was tired and I was like, oh, what am I going to choose now? Like, question. And I chose to go horse riding, like out the back at this place in El Encanto, like in Costa Rica. It was a 2.5-hour ride and it was so good. I had so much fun. It was so joyful and my body was so happy. But if I tried to work it out or go to what was the right choice, I probably would have gone, hey, you're a little exhausted. You should probably lie down or blah, 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 something like that, rather than, well, what energy does my body require right now? Okay. Horse riding and to be out in nature. So, yeah, it's questioning everything.
And I think in the process of questioning, what we will often find is this other thing you're referencing, which is we're going to find out where we're in judgment or where we're being judged by others, right? And I always say judgment is the greatest source of human suffering, because that's, in the work that I do, I see people being so unkind to themselves with how they're judging themselves, trying to prove they're right, but secretly they've already decided they're completely wrong. Right. And then all the judgment going on in the world against, people against each other, us versus them, we're right, they're wrong, all these things. Like, it really, to me, is the greatest source of human suffering. Can you say more about your take on that?
Yeah. A couple of points too. I mean, even in Buddhism, it's like Buddha says that if you have expectations, it will always lead to disappointment. And I think judgment starts when you have like expectations or projections. Either you've created them or somebody else's is creating them, like, and putting them towards you. So then you start to judge what you're choosing and what you're not choosing. I mean, if you use money as an example, so many people would calibrate their level of success by the amount of money they have in their bank account. That's not true. Like, it's like you don't go, oh, once I have a certain amount of money, then I'll be happy. You get to choose to be happy. You get to wake up in the morning and go, God damn it, I'm so grateful that I'm me and I have this body and etc. And I'm going to choose happy no matter who's choosing anything around me. So judgment is everywhere. And it's interesting. I've been working on that recently. I tend to get a little bit OCD about, tools. I just noticed, like, judgment is just boop, like it just comes up so quickly. And whether it's about me or something or someone else. And so what I have been really working on is just noticing as soon as I go to judge, and then instead of judgment, it's like ask another question. Like, even this is funny. I was riding my horse the other day and she's pregnant. She's 6 months pregnant. And I got on her and I was riding. I was like, God, I feel really fat today. Like, I can hardly fit into my pants. I was like, I'm really bloated. And I'm like, all this. And I'm riding. And then I went, oh, she's pregnant. This is like, which is a great tool Access Consciousness has. Who does this belong to? And I went, oh God, she's like, she couldn't fit in like her belt that goes under her saddle. She can't fit in that anymore, you know? And I went, this is so her. And I'm picking up on it. But we pick up on so many people's thoughts, feelings, and emotions. And we're so quick to go, that's mine. I'm the one that's fat. I'm the one that can't fit my pants. I'm the one that's, you know, and then you go on a spiral of judgment. It's like, what did I eat? What didn't I do? What did I do? Da da da. And it's like it's like this litany of judgment. And it's up to every person to go, okay, I'm going to make the demand of myself, because you can't demand of anyone else, to stop judging myself, to stop judging my body, to stop judging my relationships, to stop judging my financial reality, to stop judging my business, like, you know, whatever it is. I always give the analogy, if you had someone, you know, knock on the door and it's your money, it's your financial reality, how do you treat it? If you have your business knock on the door, how do you treat it? You know, if you have your body knock on the door, how are you treating it? Are you welcoming it with open arms and going, hey, we got this, let's go? Or are you getting cranky at it? Are you getting frustrated? Are you getting judgmental? Like, are you projecting something at it, expecting something that it's not able to generate? You know, there's a whole lot of things. And it's such a mindset thing, and everybody else is doing it. But what if we didn't have to be like everybody else?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that question. And the who does it belong to? I want to highlight that because it was such an important tool for me
Mm.
early on when I was starting to take access classes, because I didn't realize at the time how much of a highly sensitive person I was, or an empath, as you know, some people call it. I was constantly, and working as in the healing arts in the early days when I was still in grad school and doing internships and starting to see clients, you know, I was so exhausted and depleted, and I felt depressed and I felt anxious, and I thought that these things were my own things because I
Mm.
was feeling them, and I didn't realize how much I was picking up on from my clients. So
Yes.
when people start asking that question, who does this belong to? Well, then what? Once they realize, okay, well, maybe this isn't my stuff. I was fine before I walked into this room or
Mhm.
visited this person. Now I'm walking away like, you know,
Yeah.
like anxious, wanting to pull my hair out. You know, what do people do with that once they have the awareness?
I love the way you put that, because the awareness doesn't go away. So, like, yeah, if you walk into, and that's a great analogy too, like if you walk into a room and all of a sudden you're like, oh, what's going on? And you're like, you know, maybe there's, I mean, look at the energy of fear around the world right now, or the energy of fight, or, you know, whatever. It could be angry, frustration, or sadness. And you start to take that on. Ask the question, who does this belong to? Right? Now, it's going to take a little bit of time. It's going to take some practice, but ask, who does this belong to? And if the whole thing lightens up, it's not yours. And ask, you know, or you could ask, is this mine? And being that energy of who does this belong to, because 99% of your thoughts, feelings, and emotions are not yours. You are aware. And that's the key piece, because people go, oh, but it's still there. Yeah, but you're still aware that this person is angry. It just means that you don't have to buy that as your anger. So you get to choose something different. So I think it's a really important piece to get, because then I've had so many conversations where they're like, well, I don't want to be that aware. It's like, okay, but what if your awareness increased? And as your awareness increased, you also increase your allowance. Like if I look at, I mean, I referenced my mother before, and everything I did was wrong. You know, everything I did was wrong, right? And she used to do things like give me the silent treatment for 3 days. With my brother would look at me and go, "What did you do wrong?" And I'd go, "I don't know." But she wouldn't talk to me for 3 days. So I was like walking on eggshells. I mean, it's classic gaslighting, you know, all those terminologies now. But when I was a kid, I had no idea. I was just like, shit, I'm really wrong. What did I do? So you'd be walking on eggshells and having that energy. Whereas as I grew up, and as I also started using the access consciousness tools, I would go see my mother, and it was like, you know what? You get to choose you. But I'm not gonna like make myself smaller for you, and I'm also not going to buy into your anger and your judgment. I'm going to choose what I choose in the face of that. And it's also, it's not about fighting it. It is about being an allowance. So as your awareness increases, then you have to also increase your allowance. And one of those things too, which was really interesting for me to get, finally, someone said to me, do you real, because I used to try and change everything I was doing to see if I do this, if I say this, if I da-da-da, then maybe my mother will be happy. And someone said, do you realize that your mother's happiness is when she's unhappy? Now, that didn't make any sense to me, but I looked at it and I went, oh my God, you're right. Like, she would rather have a problem and be bitching and moaning and like be extremely racist as well. I remember when she would talk about those bloody Asians, she used to say. And as a kid, I used to go, well, what did the Asians do? Because I thought if we don't like them, they must have done something, you know. And then she would yell at me for arguing with her. And I was like, but I don't know what the Asians did. And it took me, obviously, as a kid, like a while to realize, oh, my mum is just incredibly racist, right? But if I'm not going to, I can't change that. I tried so hard to change it. And as I was trying so hard to change her and her point of view, it was affecting me and making me like a much smaller being than I truly be. So when I finally went, you know what? You have your reality and I'll have mine. I will be an allowance of you. I mean, I haven't seen her in a really long time. It's like I sort of was like, I don't actually require this in my life. But I get to choose more of me. And I think that's really important because a lot of the times I wish that we all had good families. I really do. But the majority of people have not got families that, you know, they're surrounded by that are like, go be everything you can be, do everything you can be. You got this. Most of the time they do project something at them, and it's usually about judgment or keeping you, you know, defined so that they don't have to create anything greater. So, yeah.
Well, I think a lot of parents see their children as a reflection of themselves, right? So if their child is making choices that are not esteemable choices, then that means they were a bad parent, right? So, but I'm really glad that you brought up this idea of allowance because it was really instrumental, I think, for me as a psychologist, as a healer. I also, in addition to being highly sensitive to my clients, I also felt this obligation, this sense of obligation that it was my job to fix them. It was my job to heal them, to make them better, to make them happy, which is a lot of pressure on anybody, but also not possible, right? Because there were clients with whom I would try every tool in the book, every modality I knew, and yet still they're miserable. And it was Gary Douglas, you know, asking me some questions about that once that helped me to realize, oh, people are choosing their suffering. You know,
Yeah.
they're not maybe always conscious that they're choosing their suffering. But they are in fact choosing it, and they maybe don't want to choose something different. So I could try bending over backwards and still nothing will happen if they're not actually willing to receive what I'm offering.
Yes.
And that was huge. I mean, it got me out of this position of feeling so responsible for people and having more allowance. And I'm here if you are willing to receive what I have to offer, but if you don't, that's okay too. It's not my job to fix you.
Yeah. I was talking to someone this morning, they were running my bars, and she was telling me about a while ago that she said, I spent a month struggling. And she said, and then I realized I don't have to struggle. And she went, I realized it was a choice. And we both laughed because it's so true. It's like you think I must live on struggle street. I must da 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 da. And then you're actually choosing it. So even whatever's going on, it's like you can be like, okay, so, you know, what do I love about choosing this? What do I love about choosing struggle? What do I love about, you know, choosing to be unhappy? And most
Choosing
of the
to judge
time,
myself, even.
yeah,
Yeah.
what do I love about judging myself? You know, these questions, and you will have, as you ask questions, which we spoke about, as you ask the questions, you'll have more clarity. And, you know, what would it take to have more ease with the clarity so that you can choose something different? Because we're like, you know, in Access Consciousness, we talk about you are an infinite being. And everything that, you know, we've been talking about is it keeps us finite, like, you know, smaller and smaller and smaller and the same as everybody else and normal and average and real. And we're not. Like, we're not normal. We're definitely not normal. We don't fit, and you've spent your entire life trying to fit, and you don't. So it's like, what would you like to choose? Like, what if we could all be these magical creatures and just miracles everywhere, because we're no longer choosing judgment, and we're actually choosing to be ourselves. Me to be me, you to be you, no matter what it takes, no matter what it looks like.
I would love to live in a world like that. What would it
Me
take?
too.
And I love that you're talking about you're really now tapping into this ask and receive idea, right? The question, yes, empowers and it opens up more possibilities, but it's also kind of giving the universe a little nudge like, hey, what would it take to have more clarity with this? Is basically saying, universe, can you please give me some clarity here? Give me some more information, or show me where I need to go to get the clarity. Like it is a request. And I don't think people fully understand that law, ask and receive, to me seems like a law of the universe. It's just like physics, quantum entanglement. You're asking a question and the universe now starts moving molecules around to bring you the thing that you're asking for, if you're willing to receive it, which I want to come to as well. But can you talk about ask and receive, how you understand that?
Yeah, I love the way you put it as well. And we're not taught. I mean, as we mentioned before, we're not really taught to ask, and we're taught to receive a certain amount. Like, in truth, we're taught to how to handle struggle, how to handle failure. We're not taught how to handle success. And then once you have success, you're meant to be happy. Whatever success that may be. Maybe it's getting married and having kids. Maybe it's financial. Maybe it's whatever that is that you deem that a success. And then you're supposed to not ask for more. Why not? I think we can ask for more. I think we can ask for more every day. So one of the things I would always ask is, dear universe, it's like, thank you so much for everything that you've gifted. Show me what else is possible. And for me, I've been playing with that too, of not sort of going, okay, what else is possible with my business? What else is possible with my money? Like, we're not putting a focused energy on it, because we tend to only choose and reference what somebody else around us is choosing, or what we have a link to. So it's a little bit linear. And then this really goes into the chaos, like the chaos energy of like, okay, if everything was to go away, everything I've created my life as was to go away, universe, show me what else is possible. Like, show me with everything. Because what are we not choosing that we could be choosing? I was talking to a friend this morning, and she's 63, and she was saying when she turned 60, she started to do this, like, oh, okay, now I have pain, now I have this, now blah, 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 blah. And she was petrified of riding a horse. And she was 60, maybe 3 years ago, just after that. And she overheard me talking to someone about riding, and saying to them, hey, look, if you want to go on a really easy ride, I can go with you. We can just go for a little walk up here. And she was in the pool here at Elugar, and she went, can I come? And I went, sure. And she was petrified. She said, even asking you in the pool of going, can I come? Absolutely petrified. And we went riding. We had this really beautiful ride. The horse that she rode, she ended up buying that horse, and now she comes here all the time and rides all the time. She lost, she was telling me 28 pounds, because I had to work out how much 28 pounds was, 12 kilos. In the last 2 years, she's so much more mobile. But she said, I changed the way I looked at what I was choosing. Like, I had decided I'm 60. That meant a whole lot of things, rather than maybe I have a different choice available, and I could choose something different. And I think every day, like we, mentioned before, it's like choosing daily, asking a question daily of what else, and knowing that you can ask for more. It's okay to ask for more. Like, right now, anywhere in your life that you've decided you are not willing or allowed to ask for more, it's like, just start having that flow come around. Like, you were talking about receiving, ask and receive, and a lot of people go to receiving is something, you receive it and it stops with you, or it's about money. Receiving is everything. Receiving is every single energy, and it keeps flowing. Like, there is no stop to receiving. You can just keep asking, like, more, and ask to, yesterday I was writing and I was like, okay, receive from the water, receive from the grass, receive from the horses, receive from the wind, receive from the sun. Like, we tend to dismiss the elementals, the elements that are around us. But nature, the earth, is just like, will you let me help you? And it's like, yes, like just say yes.
I think that the challenge people have with receiving is back to the judgments. Like they don't think they deserve it, or you say they're not allowed to ask for more. They don't deserve it. It's we've been so brainwashed, right, with
Mm-hmm.
all these negative points of view and judgments that we hold about ourselves or what's possible, as a woman, right, or as a person of fill in the blank, whatever, like a minority group or something like that. I feel like so many people can be culturally limited in what they think they deserve or can ask for. So how can people, if they realize that judgment is creating a blockage to their receiving, what do you suggest they do with that?
Stop it. but look, this is moments like this, it's going to take some courage, because have a look at who you're surrounding yourself by. Like, and the stories I've told here today, who I was surrounding myself by, like say my family, most of the time they weren't encouraging. Like my father was, but he was also working like 6.5 days a week. Like he died like 12 years ago. And I remember before he died, he said to me, I'm so sorry I wasn't around. I never even thought about it, because I was like, that's just what a dad does, is they go to work 6.5 days a week. I know now why he probably was, going to the office, to get away from my mom. But but didn't think that there was anything wrong with what he was choosing, and I didn't have him really available to keep saying to me, "Please keep being more. Please keep being greater." So I want you to have a look at all the people you surround yourself by. Even when I met Gary Douglas, he said to me, "Wow, your friends are mean." And I was like, what? And wanted to like protect everything. And he asked me a few questions, and I started to look at it, and he was right. And he said, Simone, you surround yourself by mean people because you're used to it, and you also know how to control it. And most people go, oh, I want kindness. Do you? Can you receive kindness? It's like, it's kindness doesn't have this end result. It's undefined, and you have to be willing to open up those doors to receiving, to have kind people show up in your life. And I think it was about 12, 15 years ago, I was hanging out with some friends, and I made this request of the universe, and I said, please show me more kind people. I would like to surround myself by kind people. And I started asking for that, and just living, uh, so ask for that, like ask for things that you desire with that. And then also just look at who you're talking to. Because what if you didn't have to talk to anyone? Like, what if it was just for you, just for fun? Don't tell anyone. And you may have people in your life that you can talk to, and they're in total allowance, and they're grateful for you, and they're encouraging. But what if you just went outside and spoke to the earth? What is it that you would like to have? And how many of you are looking for validation through other people it's only going to limit you, so you can prove that you can't choose something different. You can't choose something more. It's like, it's not true. This is going to take some courage. Okay. This is, you need to find that courage. And every single one of us has that, like, deep in your belly sort of thing, and go, okay, I trust myself. And one of the things we talk about is the 5 elements of intimacy and access consciousness too, which is trust, allowance, gratitude, vulnerability, and honor. And these are 5 elements which we often look for in other people, to have them for us. I'd like someone to be grateful for me, to be honoring, of me. But you can't receive that unless you start being that with you. And when I say you, it's like being that with you and your body. It's like, are you grateful for you? Are you grateful for, are you grateful for your body? Are you honoring of you and your body? Are you trusting of you and your body? Like I said, this horse ride that we went on yesterday, it was so good. I just feel like I want to go on a really relaxing ride. And it was great, but it was 2.5 hours of like up and down and in rivets and all this thing that you had to be totally present. And I love those moments where you don't have a second to think about anything else. It's like you, the horse, my body. Okay, body, I trust you. I trust the horse's body. Let's go, like having those moments in life where you engage with these energies, these elements, and just say like, and be like, yeah, I'm going to give this a shot.
I love it. I'm so glad you brought up the 5 elements of intimacy, because I was going to ask you about that. I was going to ask about relationships, because you've written a book, relationship. Are you sure you want one?
Yep.
Very good question to ask. And I'm curious, you talk about 5 elements of intimacy in that book. And I'm curious your take on, like, how can relationships become spaces of expansion rather than contraction or obligation? Or, I mean, people are so, again, who I see in my practice, so much of the issues that people come in with is about relationships, or having problems in this, that, or
Mm.
the other relationship. So how can we have more possibility, expansion, joy, creation, all these things that you talk
Mm.
about and write about in your book?
Well, again, I mean, you can talk about stuff, but you've actually got to take some action. And so one of the things I did was I wrote down those 5 elements on Post-it notes and I put them on my bathroom mirror. And so brushing my teeth, morning and night, I looked at those 5 elements, and I'll tell you them again, is trust, honor, gratitude, vulnerability, and allowance. Because I don't know how I got to this awareness, but I was like, I can't have this with anybody else unless I have this with me. And so I kept, and there's a clearing statement in Access Consciousness that we use, and which you can find out more at theclearingstatement.com. But every day brushing my teeth, 2 minutes, and I would literally like go, okay, where have I not been honoring of myself? Where have I not been allowance? So where have I not been the 5 elements? And I would run through them, and I would run through them one by one, because there's a different energy. If you say, like, where am I not trusting myself? And everything that is, I would destroy and uncreate it, right and wrong, good and bad, pock and pot, all 100 shorts, boys, perverts, creations, bases, and beyonds, which is the Access Consciousness clearing statement. And then I'd go through each one and each question. And then I would start doing it with my body as well, because I realized, maybe I trust me, but I was not trusting my body. And then, so I would run through this, and it took a while. Like, there'd be some crazy stuff that would show up, and you were like, okay. And I would pock and pot it. That's the short version. You don't need to know the long version. You can just pock and pot it. It's about changing the energy. And then you can ask for that with somebody else as well. And it's funny, I still had them written up on my bathroom mirror, and I had them in Italian as well, because I was learning Italian. And I've had a lover now for quite a few years, and we were getting out of the shower one day, and he's reading it, and he looked at me and he went, "That's what we have." And I went, I know. And it's like, but I didn't have any expectations of him. I'm not looking for him to fulfill me. And I know you hear that, like, people hear that. We talk about it all the time. But it's like, how do you create that? And so that's what I did with those 5 elements of intimacy. And, every now and then you do something and you go into some need or something, or trying to control someone, and you're like, well, okay, that's not actually what I desire. I desire more. I desire to, like, show me more, show me more, show me more. Every time I receive more, it's not bad. Like, you don't go, oh no, I wish I hadn't received that. It's like, woof, you gain awareness. There's more joy. There's more possibilities. Sometimes you're like, am I totally capable of this? Yes. And you just keep moving forward and keep moving forward. Okay, let's ask for more. Let's ask for more. And I think we tend to look for what's comfortable and what's predictable, rather than, I'll have that. I'll have something that's totally different.
Well, we seek safety and security, right? That's like a primary driver, I guess, of human behavior. And I think that's where people, they get stuck. They even if their relationship isn't comfortable, it's what they know, it's
Yep.
familiar, it's safe, it's secure, and to go outside of the bounds of that would be far too scary. So I think your comment before about courage is really applicable here too. If you want to change your life, if you want your life to be different, you really do have to empower yourself with some courage to take a step, to ask a question, to choose something different, to stop judging yourself. All these, really amazing things we've been talking about. So as we get to the end here, Simone, I have a question. What does joy mean to you now versus 25 years ago?
Ooh, peace is what comes up for me. Yeah, it doesn't have to be so loud and noisy anymore.
Mhm.
It's, yeah. I'd say 25 years ago, I was looking for joy and looking for other people to align and agree with me with the joy that I was choosing. Whereas now I'm like what I choose is what I choose. And if it's got that energy that's just keeps going, it's like that. Yeah, it's peace.
Love it. And if you could share one question, we've talked a lot about questions today. If you could share one question you would suggest for people maybe just getting started with all of this, what's a question they could ask every morning when they wake up?
One question? No.
They can have more than one, but something that would
Um,
start to really like open things up for them and
okay.
start to create a space for change.
All right. So there's two, but they're very similar. What's right about me I'm not getting? And what's so funny about this I'm not getting? Because I think you need to start laughing at some situations, okay? And really ask the question, when you're like, oh my God, me or steal, and you're struggling. Okay, what's so funny about this? I'm not laughing about it, okay? Because
Uh-huh.
we make so much matter and relevant. And if it didn't matter and it wasn't relevant, oof, what else would we choose?
Mm-hmm. Love it. Simone, if people want to find out more about you and your work, your books, your classes, where do they go?
You can Google my name. I have a great name. I don't think there's another Simone Milasas, which makes it really easy. So Simone, Milasas. That's my website, Instagram, Facebook, all of that and more. Also on accessconsciousness.com. You can find me, and you can find literally hundreds, if not thousands, of facilitators or practitioners around the world too.
Love it. Thank you so much for being with us today, for all of your wisdom, your awareness, the gift that you are in the world. Thank you for sharing that with us. And for those who have been watching or listening, if you have found this podcast helpful, please do share it, comment, like, subscribe, rate, review, whatever, all the things that will get more people out there, get this information in the hands of the people who are searching for it. So thank you, Simone. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Kaleidoscope of Possibilities, Alternative Perspectives on Mental Health. This has been Dr. Adriana Popescu. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe and share with others. To find out more about me, my guests, and more, please visit my website at adrianapopescu.org. See you next time.